Jupiter ascending, and the Wachowskis descending. Hey everyone, David here. So now that we finally got the graveyard that is January out of the way, I was about to say Jupiter. Every now and then we do get a couple of films that pique our interest in the month of February. It's also a little bit strange that one of those movies happens to be one that was originally going to come out back all the way to July of last year, but then got pushed to February because they thought it would do better commercially. Yeah, let's just see how that turns out. But no matter, I am back with another movie review. This time I'm talking about Jupiter Ascending, which is the new movie by the Wachowskis, the creators of the Matrix trilogy. Take that as you will. And it stars both Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum. And Kunis plays a character named Jupiter Jones, who is living an ordinary life and wants to change that because she's just done with it. She's fed up with it. And out of nowhere, this guy comes in to take her away from Earth and away from these threats that are trying to kill her, and reveals this destiny that is in store for her. Gee, does it sound familiar? Enter problem number one with this movie, and that is that it's actually rather cliche. There's some very unoriginal stuff, mainly with the whole The One prophecy that the Matrix creators even tackled with themselves back in the 90s with the friggin' Matrix. So now they're redoing it with her, and Channing Tatum is that protector, guardian type figure that comes in and says, you need to come with me if you want to live, you know. But you could have already told that from the trailer. I mean, I saw an awful lot of trailers and TV spots for this movie, and from those I can tell that that was one of the things that going in I knew I wasn't going to like about the movie. But what I was not expecting was the story itself also feeling a little bit clunky, a little bit, and I generally don't use this term because I feel like it's thrown around an awful lot in the movie reviewing universe, but disjointed. To the point where it even forgets about certain characters, and you're like, that person has been gone a long time. Oh, there he is. And also rushed, because it's a shame that this movie actually has some neat little ideas within its story. Mainly on how I don't want to call them aliens, because the movie lets it be known that these are more like interplanetary beings that travel from planet to planet. However, how they view these planets and how they view the universe as a whole was actually one of the more interesting parts about the story for this movie. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds really interesting. Can you please explore that? Oh, where are you going? Oh, there it goes. Mumbled with an awful lot of British accents here and there, and I know that sounds a little racist, but I'm sorry. This movie rushes through those beats in the story that they could have been interesting, but instead the movie is compartmentalized into a 2-hour film, and because of that they rush through these beats that would have made for a much more interesting story rather than the reused one we get here with The One prophecy. It tried to make it a little bit new by bringing in reincarnation and genetics, but when you strip it down, it's essentially the same thing. And I feel that after watching this movie, this story probably would have been better off as a miniseries. I think as a miniseries, this probably could have been rather successful on a premium channel like HBO or Showtime. I mean, especially HBO. You see the budget on Game of Thrones, I'm pretty sure that they could handle science fiction like this. And I feel like within an 8-part miniseries, they could have given us an explanation to how the background story of this universe works, while at the same time making it sure that us as an audience can keep going along with it. Because I was trying my hardest to keep going with the story here, but they would mention things just so fast that I'm like, okay, I give up. This is just way too convoluted for me. And the other thing that this movie could have used is a punch-up writer, besides the Wachowskis, to give it a better flair and a better sense of humor. Because this movie tries to be funny, and for the most part, it kind of fails. There's this little mini subplot about her wanting to fertilize her eggs with her cousin. I know, that's, on paper that sounds weird. And they try to make it funny, but it just doesn't work. There's a couple of quips here and there, or a few sight gags that were kind of funny. They made me chuckle just a bit. And of course, pretty much all of them are done by Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis, who we know have had backgrounds with comedy in the past. And because of that, they're comfortable doing those things and make it actually kind of funny. But besides that, man, this movie definitely needed something that Guardians of the Galaxy did, where it would have realized how, over the top this universe has made this movie made for itself, that hey, it needs that kind of humor. And I think what the other type of humor that this movie would have utilized, being that it's so cliche, was for our main character to kind of be self-aware to the things that are around her, that she's like, wow, I've seen enough movies to realize that, hey, this is probably the stuff from the movies. There's a scene where she's in a room that has an automated voice responding to every question that she asks it. And she doesn't make a Siri joke, being that we saw her with an iPhone earlier in the movie? Come on. Now, as negative as I'm being about this movie, make no mistake, the Wachowskis nail one thing that they know how to get right in almost every single movie that they do, and that is the visuals. This movie really does look rather stunning, from the design and even the CG effects. I mean, sure, there's a couple of scenes where I want to say I could tell, but not really, because there were a couple of moments where I was questioning myself. But then there were others where you can tell that the majority of this landscape, this environment, is CG. But it's some pretty damn good CG, because there were, like I said, there were moments where I was second guessing myself and thinking, yeah, this might be an actual set, but at the same time, there's like these outlines around the actors where I'm like, okay, maybe they're in front of a blue screen. But if you're gonna make it into a CG backdrop, you better make that shit look not only real, but also make it look good. And I think that they really did that very well with the environment in this movie. And the Wachowskis can also direct action. I mean, we've come a long way from that very rubbery CG that they used on The Matrix Reloaded. So they were able to utilize some of the technology they have for them, that they have with them today, so that they can deliver some really jaw-dropping action sequences that really got to me. I was like, okay, this is actually pretty entertaining. They're so entertaining that I'm actually willing to forgive the fact that the first one suffers from what I call Man of Steel syndrome, in which they destroy a bunch of buildings and they have potentially killed a bunch of people. I mean, they even have a scene afterwards where Mila Kunis questions Channing Tatum's character about, what if somebody saw this? How are we going to repair the buildings that we destroyed? And they're like, oh, no, it's okay, we're going to pull some Men in Black shit, we're going to repair the buildings instantly with some, regenerators, and we're going to wipe out their minds so that they didn't see anything. Yeah, how about if somebody died? Okay, why didn't she ask that question? What if somebody died? How are you going to explain that to whoever knew that person? Because I know for a fact one of those buildings had there's even a shot where they show the interior of a room that has a bunch of empty desks to show you, hey, nobody got killed. Yeah, but what about that building across the street that you just destroyed? I'm sure there was some poor sap in that building who was working overtime so that he can pay the bills off for his family, his wife, and his kids. What about that, motherfucker? And I'm also willing to forgive that climax, which, despite looking very good, I'll have to admit is a bit of a ripoff of the climax for Treasure Planet. Yeah, Wachowskis, you didn't think that somebody liked that movie enough to be able to remember it, did ya? And then there's this guy, the final nail. Oh, man. Remember how I said at the beginning of this review that it got pushed from July to February? That is the only detail that Eddie Redmayne saves himself with. Because if it wasn't for that, man, this guy would have owed us big time. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I take some relief. I'm able to forgive Eddie Redmayne for his performance in this movie, because I know that, being that this was set to release in July, he shot this way before he did his Oscar-nominated performance in The Theory of Everything, where he was actually rather amazing. So for that, I'm willing to forgive Mr. Redmayne here. But goddamn, the entire movie he's talking like he smoked 2 packs a day. And then when he has his little bursts of anger, he sounds just so comedically bad. You're just like, oh my god. And being that I saw him being so good in The Theory of Everything, I feel like this was the director's fault. The director's telling him, hey, we want you to play this character this way. And he's like, okay, I'll try to do my best. And this is what we ended up with. Personally, I'm a little glad that Eddie Redmayne is actually not that much in the movie. In fact, he's actually gone for quite a while in the movie. But at the same time, that's also a bit of a bad thing, because that goes back to what I was complaining about with the movies, that sometimes it loses its focus, that it doesn't remember who the main villain is. So I'll admit that Jupiter Ascending was a bit of an ambitious project for the Wachowskis, and you can definitely tell that they wanted to make something great. It wasn't because they wanted to make a bad movie. In fact, I'm not even going to say that this was a bad movie, because there were some cool things in it that I liked, like the CG and some of the action sequences, especially that one in Chicago that I really liked the most, and some of the intriguing background story. But it just feels like it would have benefited from it being a miniseries rather than a movie because it just felt rushed, clunky, disjointed, and it's overall cliched. And maybe those cliches would have been given a pass should it had taken that miniseries form. But hey, I can at least compliment the movie for doing something with a particular actor that I don't think a movie has done in a really long time. I mean, it's revolutionary. If you look up the IMDb list, you'll know what actor I'm talking about. But in the end, I give Jupiter Ascending a high 6 out of 10. It's okay, you know, it's not particularly bad, but I'm sure the Wachowskis can do better. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of Jupiter Ascending if you have seen it, and I'll see you guys next time.